small boats nudged their way slowly upstream, their crews enjoying the June sunshine. A few of the women had even ventured out in bikini tops, hoping to catch an early summer tan. After half a mile, Jade turned south, away from the river. She followed a track that took her through the hamlet of Ridge and onto a narrow road that headed towards the heavily wooded and somewhat wild countryside of the Arne Peninsula, which jutted out into the wide, watery expanse of Poole Harbour, the largest natural harbour in Europe. The single-track lane was busy with visitors to Arne's popular nature reserve. Jade wasn't going that far, however. Instead, she turned off into the woods a mile before the birdwatching centre. At one point, the roadside fence struggled to hold back a dense thicket of trees and shrubs. She brought her bicycle to a halt at a point where the copse thinned somewhat, and a faint path could just be discerned beyond the fence. Jade dismounted, hefted the machine over the fence, and clambered across. She left the bike behind some trees and began to follow the path through the woods, heading towards a slight rise a few hundred yards ahead. On the far side of the rise stood an old ramshackle timbered structure, half hidden in the undergrowth. The small hut had no door, but someone had lodged an old sheet of rust-streaked corrugated iron against the opening in recent years. This was now lying on the ground, several yards from the hut. Jade walked to the edge of the small clearing and stood still. She couldn't make sense of what she was seeing. The small open area was strewn with bits of cloth, as if wild animals had entered the hut and pulled things out. "Paul," she called, "are you here?" Silence. No birds. Had they been singing before she called out? She moved forward slowly. Inside the tiny hut, his meagre belongings were spread randomly across the floor. Foxes? Badgers? Or had someone been searching the place? If so, what for? "Paul?" Something was seriously wrong. She peered into the shadows beneath the surrounding trees. A rook squawked nearby, startling her. "Paul! Algy! Are you there?" Was that the sound of something small moving through the undergrowth? Jade made her way through the trees in the direction of the river, towards the top of the low ridge. "Algy! Is that you?" She heard a dog bark. It sounded muted and weak. "Algy!" There was a rustle in the thicket ahead of her, and a small, filthy dog emerged and limped towards her. She bent down and ruffled its skinny neck. It whined at her. "What's happened, Algy? What's wrong? Where's Paul?" The dog barked again and limped back towards the pocket of shrubs. Jade followed, scrambling through the undergrowth, scratched by brambles. Algy's rear left leg was dragging on the ground. Had there been an accident? Why was the dog so thin and filthy? She rounded a clump of bushes. On the ground in front of her lay a body, sprawled across the grass. She ran towards the motionless figure and bent down. "Paul?" She was about to feel for a pulse, but a look at his face told her it would be pointless. The dog must have kept the rodents and other animals away, but it couldn't stop the insects. She staggered back, her gorge rising. Was there a mobile phone signal here? What had happened? They sat on damp logs, waiting for a forensic unit to arrive. Jade was sipping on a water bottle that she'd brought in her backpack. Sergeant Rose Simons was asking questions, and Constable George Warrender was taking notes. "So, what brought you up here into the woods? I'm not clear on that point," Rose asked the tall, dark-haired teenager. "Paul's been missing from his usual places in town for days now, maybe weeks. He's usually either in the town centre or one of the underpasses." "What do you mean?" "He's a beggar, a sort of tramp. He's here every summer. Surely you've seen him around town," Jade said. "We're not normally based in Wareham. We're over in Blandford or Dorchester. We're just doing cover over this way for a few weeks. What's your name, by the way?" "Jade." "Well, Jade, you'd better explain how come you know him so well, this Paul Prentice." Rose was watching the young woman carefully. "I bring him and his dog Algy some food a couple of times a week. You know, sandwiches, cake, maybe a pork pie. Sometimes I give him some money, but not very often. He spends some of it on booze, and I got a bit fed up telling him that it wasn't doing him any good. He used to try to keep overnight in the town centre, but you lot moved him on when some of the locals complained."